Picture a country where history is not only written by the victors, but is custom crafted by a ruling dynasty. This is North Korea, a land enshrouded in secrecy, ruled with an iron fist by the Kim family. This video explores North Korea's transformation from a country with a complex past and rich culture into what many now refer to as hell on earth. It traces the rise of the Kim Dynasty and examines the current state of its citizens living under the stringent control and oppression. Let's uncover the truths behind the facade to see what life is really like in one of the most secretive nations on earth. Prepare yourselves. In 1945, as World War II came to a close, Korea found itself at a crossroads. The surrender of Japan, which had colonized Korea, led to a sudden power vacuum. This was when the Allies, particularly the Soviet Union and the United States, stepped in. They divided Korea along the 38th parallel, the Soviets in the north and the Americans in the south. This division was intended as a temporary measure, but it set the stage for the birth of two separate Koreas, each aligned with a different superpower. The North, under Soviet influence, saw the rise of a communist regime, appealing to its working class and peasants. In contrast, the South, supported by the United States, leaned towards a rightist, anti-communist government. The division wasn't just political, it triggered a mass migration, with many middle-class Koreans moving south, where the majority of the population resides today. In 1948, an attempt to reunify Korea through a United Nations-sponsored vote failed when the North refused to participate. The South formed its own government in Seoul under Syngman Rhee, a staunch anti-communist. The North responded by installing Kim Il-sung, a former communist guerrilla, as the leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in Pyongyang. This marked the beginning of the Kim Dynasty's rule over North Korea. The Korean War, which erupted in 1950, was a devastating chapter in the peninsula's history. Lasting 3 years and claiming at least 2.5 million lives, the war wreaked havoc, particularly in the north, where US campaigns destroyed entire cities. The armistice in 1953 left the peninsula divided, much like before, but with a new, heavily fortified, demilitarized zone, effectively sealing off the two Koreas from one another. The Kim Dynasty, beginning with Kim Il-sung, then Kim Jong-il, and now Kim Jong-un, has ruled North Korea with an iron fist since 1948. Kim Il-sung's era was characterized by the establishment of a personality cult and a strict command economy based on the Juche ideology of self-reliance. After his death in 1994, his son Kim Jong-il took over, continuing the dynasty's rule until his death in 2011. Leadership then passed to his young son, Kim Jong-un, who has since consolidated his power through a series of purges and executions, removing potential threats within the elites and military. These purges are not just about eliminating political opponents. They are also a means to instill fear and maintain control. For example, the execution of Kim Jong-un's uncle in 2013 and the Minister of Defense in 2015 sent shockwaves through the elite class. Such actions, along with the regime's tight control over the economy and society, have ensured the Kim family's unchallenged rule. Under their leadership, North Korea has remained one of the poorest nations globally, yet it has also pursued ambitious projects like its nuclear program, further isolating it from the international community. The Kim family's rule in North Korea is a unique phenomenon in modern history, blending intense political control with a deeply ingrained personality cult. This dynasty started with Kim Il-sung, who after World War II emerged as the leader of the Korean Workers' Party, eventually becoming the first premier of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in 1948. His rule was characterized by the establishment of a strong, centralized state and the development of Juche, a self-reliance ideology. Kim Il-sung's leadership, which lasted until his death in 1994, was marked by his efforts to consolidate power and the creation of a cult of personality, which depicted him as a heroic, almost godlike figure. This portrayal was not just a tool of governance, but became a core element of North Korean culture and ideology. Kim Jong-il, the second leader of the dynasty, took the reins after his father's death. He continued the policies of his father, but with an even greater emphasis on military might and the country's isolation. His rule saw North Korea endure economic hardships and famines, yet his image as a wise and powerful leader was meticulously maintained through state propaganda. Kim Jong-il's leadership, which lasted until his death in 2011, was also characterized by the further development of the country's nuclear capabilities, a key aspect of the regime's strategy for survival and international negotiation. In late 2011, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il's youngest son, assumed leadership. His rule has been marked with a mix of traditional North Korean policies and his own distinctive approach. Kim Jong-un has continued the nuclear development started by his predecessors, but has also shown a willingness to engage in international diplomacy, albeit in a volatile and often unpredictable manner. His leadership has seen a combination of heightened military displays, including nuclear and missile tests, and unprecedented diplomatic engagements, such as summits with South Korea and the United States. The personality cult surrounding the Kim family has been a pivotal aspect of their rule. Each leader has been elevated to a near-divine status, portrayed as infallible and omnipotent. This cult of personality serves several purposes. It reinforces the legitimacy of the regime, creates a sense of unity and loyalty amongst the populace, and serves as a tool for indoctrination. From schools to workplaces, the lives of North Korean citizens are imbued with the teachings and imagery of the Kim family, ensuring their omnipresence in daily life. The myths and propaganda surrounding the Kim family are an integral part of this personality cult. These range from miraculous tales surrounding the leaders' births to claims of supernatural abilities. For example, Kim Jong-il's birth was said to have been heralded by a new star and a double rainbow. Such stories, though lacking factual basis, are disseminated through state-controlled media and education systems, further cementing the family's mythical status. The Kim family's rule over North Korea extends beyond mere political leadership. It is a complex tapestry of lineage, mythology, and personality cults, deeply embedded in the country's political and social fabric. Their rule is sustained by a combination of traditional power dynamics, a formidable propaganda machine, and the near deification of the family's leadership. The impact of this rule is profound, influencing not just the political and economic landscape of North Korea, but also the very identity and worldview of its citizens. This dynastic rule, unique in its longevity and style, continues to shape North Korea's path, both domestically and on the international stage. Under the Kim regime, North Korea remains one of the most repressive countries in the world. The totalitarian government, led by Kim Jong-un, uses threats of execution, imprisonment, enforced disappearance, and forced labor to maintain fearful obedience. Basic liberties, including freedom of expression, religion, and assembly, are sharply curtailed. Political opposition, independent media, civil society, and trade unions are banned. The government also extracts forced, unpaid labor from its citizens, including women and children, for infrastructure and public work projects. Movement within and outside the country is heavily restricted. Unauthorized travel between provinces or abroad is illegal, with strict surveillance and severe penalties for those caught communicating with people outside North Korea. This results in a significant decrease in the number of North Koreans who can flee to other countries. The government's pre-trial detention and criminal investigation system is arbitrary and often involves torture, beatings, and other forms of mistreatment. North Korea's social structure is characterized by the Songbun system, a socio-economic political classification that groups people into loyal, wavering, or hostile classes. This system affects an individual's access to employment, schooling, and other societal resources. While pervasive corruption allows some to navigate around these structures, the system deeply ingrains social inequality and discrimination, particularly against those classified in the hostile class. The mass media in North Korea is among the most strictly controlled in the world. Although the constitution nominally provides for freedom of speech and the press, in practice, the government controls all media content. The state allows only speech and news that supports the ruling Workers' Party of Korea. The media upholds the personality cult of the Kim family and provides propaganda that often exaggerates and misinterprets information. Journalists who fail to adhere to these strict laws face severe punishments, including hard labor, imprisonment, or execution. Media coverage in North Korea serves to promote both domestic and international agendas of the regime. Domestically, the media frequently reports on the activities of the Kim family and glorifies the leaders. Internationally, it often misleads the North Korean public about global perceptions of the country and the regime. A pervasive theme in the media is the reunification of the Koreas and the portrayal of foreign nations as imminent threats. The media also supports anti-government demonstrations in South Korea, portraying them as fights for communism rather than liberal democracy. Life under the Kim regime is marked by a lack of freedoms, a rigid class system, and tightly controlled media landscape that serves the interests of the ruling family and suppresses dissent or alternative views. Human rights abuses in North Korea are a critical and distressing topic, deeply embedded in the regime's control mechanisms over its populace. Among the most harrowing aspects of these abuses are the concentration camps, known for their brutal conditions and the regime's policy of generational punishments. Furthermore, the impact of famines on the population and the harrowing stories of defectors add layers to our understanding of the situation. Concentration camps in North Korea, often termed as re-education camps or political prisoner camps, are infamous for their harsh conditions and inhumane treatment of inmates. These camps, shrouded in secrecy, are designed for political prisoners, those who have been accused of crimes against the regime, often based on minimal or no evidence. The conditions inside these camps are deplorable. Inmates are subject to extreme forms of torture, forced labor, and in many cases execution without due process. These camps are not just facilities for punishment. They serve a dual purpose of instilling fear among the general population, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of dissent. The concept of generational punishment, or guilt by association, is another tool employed by the regime to maintain control. This policy implies that not only the individual accused of a crime is punished, but their entire family, spanning 3 generations, can be sent to concentration camps. This brutal practice is rooted in the idea of collective responsibility, where families are held accountable for the actions of one member. It's a strategy that further cements the power of the regime by discouraging dissent, as the potential consequences extend far beyond the individual. Famines have also played a significant role in the human rights situation in North Korea. The most notable, the arduous march in the mid-1990s, resulted from a combination of natural disasters and mismanagement by the government. This famine led to widespread starvation and death, with estimations of fatalities ranging in the hundreds of thousands. The famine not only highlighted the failure of the government to provide for its people, but also exposed the regime's prioritization of its military and nuclear programs over the well-being of its citizens. The famine's impact was profound, with long-term effects on the health and development of the North Korean population. The stories of defectors provide a unique and personal perspective on life in North Korea. Accounts from individuals like Yeonmi Park, who escaped North Korea, offer insights into the everyday realities of living under the Kim regime. Park's story, like many others, tells of the struggles for basic survival, the constant indoctrination, and the journey of escape. These personal narratives are crucial in humanizing the plights of the North Koreans and shedding light on the impacts of the regime's policies on individual lives. Now that you've gained insight into the Kim Dynasty's iron grip within North Korea, you might wonder how this reclusive state engages with the wider world. What is North Korea's approach to international relations, and how does its secretive regime impact global dynamics? Its current position on the global stage is marked by significant shifts in its international relations, ongoing development of its nuclear program, and changes in the dynamics of international aid. 2023 witnessed North Korea reducing its global diplomatic footprint significantly, with plans to close up to a dozen embassies, including those in Spain, Hong Kong, and several African nations. This move, which could see nearly a quarter of its missions worldwide shut down, is largely seen as a consequence of the economic difficulties the country faces due to international sanctions. The closures of these diplomatic missions, particularly in countries like Angola and Uganda, with whom North Korea has maintained friendly ties since the 1970s, indicate a significant foreign policy shift and reflect the impact of sanctions aimed at curbing the funding for North Korea's nuclear missiles program. The reduction in diplomatic presence is a notable change for a country that previously had formal relations with 159 countries and 53 diplomatic missions overseas. In terms of its nuclear program, North Korea has continued its development and production of nuclear weapons and nuclear fissile material in 2023, evading United Nations sanctions. This defiance is facilitated by cyber thefts, with North Korean hackers targeting cryptocurrency and other financial exchanges globally. These cyber operations are reported to have raised significant funds, estimated at $1.7 billion in 2022. Despite being under UN sanctions since 2006, North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs remain a point of contention on the international stage. The UN Security Council is divided on this issue, with China and Russia advocating for the easing of sanctions to encourage Pyongyang to return to denuclearization talks. North Korea's persistent nuclear development continues to be a critical factor in its international relations and has significant implications for regional and global security. On the front of international aid, the dynamics have shifted in 2023. The South Korean government approved private humanitarian assistance deliveries to North Korea amounting to 250 million won, roughly $183,000. This was the first aid package approved for Pyongyang in 2023 and the sixth since the inauguration of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration in May of the previous year. However, President Yoon Suk-yeol has taken a firmer stance compared to his predecessor, stating that the South Korean government will not provide any more aid to North Korea as long as it continues its nuclear weapons program. The current South Korean government has adopted a more hardline policy towards Pyongyang, focusing on human rights abuses and conditioning economic support on significant steps towards denuclearization by North Korea. It's apparent that the societal framework under the Kim regime in North Korea, characterized by the suppression of basic human rights, a stringent class system, pervasive indoctrination, and state-controlled media, reveals a reality where individual freedoms are heavily curtailed. The regime's approach to governance profoundly impacts the lives and mindsets of its citizens, ensuring conformity and loyalty.